I can't understand you. I ask you to start filming from the feet slowly up to the head. And you go zip, pan. Bloody hell, don't you ever watch movies? You must see thousands of movies. You must know what it's like. They're training chimpanzees at Cape Canaveral to operate a camera. Anybody can do it.
Dennis Andrew Nilsen was born on 23rd of November 1945 in Fraserburgh, Scotland. Also known as the Muswell Hill Murderer and the Kindly Killer, is a British serial killer who lived in London. Dennis killed at least 15 men and boys in gruesome circumstances between 1978 and 1983 and was known to retain corpses for sex acts. Due to similarities between their crimes, sexuality and lifestyle, Dennis was also referred to as the British Jeffrey Dahmer. Dennis was born in Strichen, Aberdeenshire, to a Scottish mother and Norwegian father. His father was an alcoholic and his parents divorced when he was 4 years old. His mother remarried and sent her son to his grandparents, but after a couple of years he was sent back to his mother again. Dennis claimed the first traumatic event to shape his life came about when he was a small child, when his beloved grandfather died. His strict Catholic mother insisted that he view the body before burial. No one knows whether it was this incident or his mother and stepfather's lectures which had helped shape him into what he has become. In 1961, Nilsen enlisted in the British Army and became a cook in Aden, Cyprus and Berlin. He left the army in 1972 and served briefly as a police officer. From the mid-1970s, Nilsen worked as a civil servant in a job centre. He was involved in a series of superficial, transitory relationships with men, though they did not assuage his feelings of profound isolation and loneliness. Like Jeffrey Dahmer, he sought somebody who wouldn't leave. That is, a corpse. All his victims were students or homeless men whom he picked up in bars and brought to his house, either for sex or just for company. Nilsen strangled and drowned his victims during the night, waking up with little memory of what he'd done. He used his butchering skills learned in the army to help him dispose of the bodies. Dennis had access to a large garden and was able to burn many of the remains in a bonfire. Nilsen's first murder took place on December 30, 1978. Nilsen claimed to have met his first victim in a gay bar. Nilsen strangled him with a necktie until he was unconscious and then drowned him in a bucket of water. On January 12, 2006, it was announced that the victim had been identified as Stephen Dean Holmes, who was born on March 22, 1964, and was therefore only 14 at the time. Holmes had been on his way home from a pop concert. Between the first and second murders, Dennis attempted to murder a student from Hong Kong he had met in the West End. Although questioned by police, the student decided not to prosecute, and Dennis was released without charge. The second victim, on December 3, 1979, was Canadian student Kenneth Ockenden. During their sexual intercourse, Dennis strangled him. Ockenden was one of the few murder victims who was reported as a missing person. The third victim, Martin Duffy, was a 16-year-old homeless boy from Birkenhead. In May 1980, he accepted Dennis's invitation to come over to his place. He was strangled and subsequently drowned in the kitchen sink. The fourth victim, Billy Sutherland, was a male prostitute from Scotland. Dennis could not remember how he murdered Sutherland, however it was later revealed that the victim had been strangled by someone using their bare hands. Murder 5. The fifth victim was another male prostitute, however this one was never identified. All that is known is that he was probably from the Philippines or Thailand. Murder 6. Nilsen could recall very little about this and the following two victims. All that he could remember about number 6 was that he was a young Irish labourer that he had met in a bar. Murder 7. The seventh victim was what Dennis described as a starving hippie type he had found sleeping in a doorway in Charing Cross. Murder 8. Dennis could recall nothing at all about his 8th victim. Murder 9 and 10 both were young Scottish men picked up in pubs in Soto. Murder 11. The 11th victim was a skinhead Dennis picked up at a Piccadilly circus who had a tattoo around his neck saying, "Cut here." He had boasted to Nilsen about how tough he was and how he liked to fight. However, once he was drunk, he proved no match for Nilsen, who hung his torso naked in his bedroom for 24 hours before he was buried under the floorboards. At some point between murders 6 and 11, on November 10th, 1980, a potential victim of Dennis woke up while being strangled and was able to fend off his attacker. Although he called police almost immediately after the attack, no action was taken by the officers, who, it is reported, considered the event to be a domestic incident. In 1981, however, Dennis moved to an upstairs flat as his murders continued. He found it difficult to dispose of the remains and had suitcases full of human organs stored in his wardrobe and plastic bags with human remains under the floorboards. Neighbours had begun to notice the smell. When he tried to dispose of the bodies by flushing them down the toilet, he blocked the sewerage of his house in Muswell Hill, 23 Cranley Gardens, North London. When a company was called to unblock the sewer system, they first found the drain to be packed with a flesh-like substance. The drain inspector then called his supervisor to assess the situation. However, this was not to take place until the next day, by which the time the drain had been cleared. This aroused the suspicions of the drain inspector and his supervisor, who immediately called the police. Upon closer inspection, some small bones and what looked like chicken flesh were found in a pipe leading off from the drain. These were later discovered to be of human origin. Dennis Nilsen was arrested in 1983 on suspicion of multiple murders. He apologised to the police for not being able to tell them the exact number of people he had killed. When his house was searched, they found 3 heads in a cupboard, and they found 13 more bodies in Nilsen's former place of residence at Crinkle Route 195 Melrose Avenue. During the trial at Old Bailey, Dennis was cold and distant and seemed utterly unaffected by the fact that he had murdered 15 people. He was sentenced to life in prison. Dennis's minimum term was set at 25 years by the trial judge, but the Home Secretary later imposed a whole life tariff, which meant that he would never be released. But after the Home Secretary was stripped of his powers to set minimum terms in November 2002, Dennis could be freed on life licence in 2008 because of his original 25-year minimum sentence. In 1993, he was given permission to give a televised interview from prison. Dennis was never released from prison. In fact, he died on May 12, 2018 from a pulmonary embolism. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, as 98% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed. It'd be greatly appreciated. I hope you guys enjoy watching these videos.